Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint by Sing Shong. Chapter 452. The Final Wall. Part 4. That light in her eyes, that killing intent. They were exactly the same as that of the archangel I knew, yet they were also different. This was Uriel's true appearance, the cold-blooded and cruel judge. She was the being that burned all the enemies caught by the flame of retribution, for the sake of righteousness. This Uriel had reached her own conclusion, and Starstream is observing the entrance of the new outer god. Starstream is deciphering whether to allow the target's probability or not. And she came this far to kill the secretive plotter. Two kings, two kings, two king, two king, two kings. The entrance of another outer god possessing a similar level of status as the secretive plotter caused confusion to spread among the small outer gods. Constellation, Goryo's first sword, is greatly stunned by the entrance of the new outer god. Constellation, bald general of justice, is watching this battlefield while forgetting to polish his head. Constellation, lily blooming on Aquarius, is opening her eyes wide. It seemed that constellations were just as shocked as me. But, broadcasting from this place should have been impossible? Maybe the barrier preventing the broadcast was undone after the forest went up in flames. Bureau is paying attention to the Nyas forest. The flames of retribution moved in Uriel's hands. The blade that melted the entirety of the forest flew in, but the plotter lightly shifted his head out of the way. The weapon missed him by a hair's breadth and instead blew away half of the hall and set it on fire. Gah! Outer gods, shocked by the merciless destruction, screamed out loudly. The flames of retribution moved again, this time with enough status to blow the entire hall away. Every hair on my dumpling body rose up. Even Surya back in the original novel's 265th turn was not as powerful as this when he destroyed Earth. Quia! This time, a humongous meteor was descending from the tip of the flames of retribution. It contained enough power to blow away this forest and then, maybe even erase this entire dimension along the way, too. I dragged out every ounce of power within my soul form. Unfortunately, there was no way I'd properly block such an attack without an incarnation body. Besides, to block an attack like that, you'd need. Great Fable, Pilgrim of the Lonely Apocalypse, has begun its storytelling. In the end, the secretive plotter had to step forward. Pitch-black particles shot out as he swung the heaven-shaking sword, vigorously. It was the power of a great fable. The dark status spread out like a huge wall and defended against the meteor's impact. Qua boom! Violent gusts of wind whipped about near the base of the forest, and the uprooted trees were flung up into the air. Whirlwinds made out of flames were completely annihilating everything in the vicinity. Witnessing a clash of this caliber was indeed an exceedingly rare opportunity. Even the battle between Hades and Poseidon back in Gigantomachia wasn't this hectic. Large nebulas are paying close attention to the battle between these two beings. Suchuchuchu. In the center of where the two statuses were colliding, sparks grew fiercer and heavier. The plotter's heaven-shaking sword was trembling, he was being pushed back. It was all due to his status being reduced after fighting me and Yu Yung Hyok. This was the power of Uriel who witnessed the conclusion. At this rate, both the secretive plotter and I would disappear from the star stream along with the Nyas forest. Currently, your soul temporarily belongs to the secretive plotter. Time remaining until your soul can return, 20 hours, 31 minutes, 20 seconds. I still had over 20 hours remaining until my soul could return. Simply dragging things out wouldn't help my situation at all. Because it didn't look as if the secretive plotter would be able to hold out for too long. Exclusive skill, the fourth wall, is activating. I needed to stay calm in moments like this. I decided to get a better understanding of this situation first. Look, man. Why is Uriel attacking you? First of all, which world line did that Uriel come from? And why was she attacking the secretive plotter? 999th turns Yu Yung Hyok is staring at the living flame with a helpless expression. For a moment, I felt the inside of my head blank out. Could it be? It was the regression turn that I liked the most. It was almost the perfect turn with just one blemish to its record, the regression turn that reached the conclusion's doorstep. Uriel began speaking again. "Oh, I ask you, the outer god. I hope that you haven't forgotten about the events of the 999th turn." "I do remember." "That's good." The blade of the enraged Uriel contained the fable she had compiled so far. Great fable, Flames of Eternity, has begun its storytelling. Her great fable burned fiercely. A story that I had never seen before was unfolding itself. "Master, we're almost there. We just have to go a little bit further, you know." That was Ejihai's voice. Words began telling their story. "Yunghyak SSI, just hold on for a little longer. We're almost there." 999th turn Yu Yunghyak, having lost his left arm, right leg, and both of his eyes, was there. This Yu Yunghyak only lived for the sake of his companions. His world was dyed in darkness, but one voice entered it like a ray of light. "Conquering king, you must stay with us." That's right. Uriel was also accompanying them in the 999th turn. She was Yu Yunghyak's comrade. For the sake of a man who risked his everything to fight, the archangel willingly became his ally. The conclusion to this world is just around the corner. I recalled that the 999th turn was something of a miracle. Even if their luck was good, to think that he managed to almost reach the conclusion during only his 999th turn. But the truth was, it wasn't all due purely to luck. Yu Yunghyak of the 999th turn made a deal with an outer god. The reason why I didn't go for the absolute throne and tried not to do the otherworld pledge if at all possible, was because I knew how the 999th turn had ended. An unknown godly being, whose name was just as mysterious. The otherworld pledge made with that godly being eventually took Yu Yunghyak's life. The original novel didn't specify who that outer god was. But it was a creature that spent its own probability to grant the 999th turn Yu Yunghyak incredible power and lucky opportunities. Chills ran down my neck. Demon King of Salvation. I too made a mistake like you once before. Rather foolishly, I tried to change what had already happened in the past. That outer god was none other than the secretive plotter. Now, do you understand? This is the consequence of distorting the world line. He had entered the past world line belonging to the original storyline and tried to distort the probability. And the result of that was Uriel, who witnessed the conclusion of the 999th regression turn, showing up here. I shall avenge my world line in this place. She was here to avenge her comrades' grudges against the outer god from then. Just like how you stole away all that's precious to me, I shall do the same to you. Her boundless and justified wrath filled her true voice. I felt all my strength abandoning me. I could understand where Uriel was coming from. I too clearly remembered the moment that the 999th turn Yu Yunghyak died. Authornym. This can't be the end, can it? But, isn't Yunghyak just too pitiful to end up like this? 999th turn Yu Yunghyak sacrificed his life to guide his comrades towards the conclusion. But his cost was to never see the conclusion of the world himself. It was all because of the damn otherworld pledge. The probability flooding in cut his life off before the end. Can't he be revived somehow? Like the underworld or through reincarnation? I mean, there are lots of different ways, right? Besides, just what was that outer god anyway? I resented the author, and resented that outer god. And I despaired while looking at the dying Yu Yunghyak, with only a little bit left until the conclusion. The mental shock was so strong that I even ended up hesitating whether to read the next day's chapter or not. Now, I was curious. Why did the secretive plotter do something like that back in the 999th turn? I wanted to change it. What? I wanted to see a proper conclusion. Even if that happened in a different world line. The plotter once told me this, that I had to be careful with the probability, that I needed to create the right conclusion. But even someone saying stuff like that had actually wished to change his past. Just like how I wished to change this regression turn, he too had felt the same way once. Regardless of whether the end result devoured the cause or not. Even if the star stream's probability crumbled. He wanted to reach the proper conclusion at least once. He wished to see himself reaching the conclusion together with his comrades. However, it didn't work out that way. I'm sure you find me quite pathetic. That I made the same sort of mistake as you. The plotter's status was crumbling down. His body was getting even smaller. All you Yoonghyeok sleeping within him were now screaming. And as if to speak up for those screams. I wanted to find the one responsible for creating this tragedy, said the plotter. The one who created this universe. The one that made me regress, and made me repeat the scenarios. My goal is to kill the one beyond the wall. That was his true goal. Stopping the regressions, saving the outer gods, opening up the final wall. All of these were centered around his main goal. He waved his hand and my soul left the Murim dumpling. I got tense. I couldn't tell what he was thinking of. I quickly spoke to him. The courage, you can't stop that, Uriel. However, if my companions and I help out. The plotter shifted his gaze over to me. Do you understand what you're saying right now? I do. I was improvising on the fly, but I did genuinely feel that way. Since I heard his true end goal, it was time for me make my reply. From the get-go, the world that peeps on and greedily devours someone else's life is wrong. The star stream was wrong. Yu Yoonghyeok's regressions were wrong, and the stories, the scenarios created were unfair. That's why I won't sit still. I'll witness the conclusion. You say I shouldn't, but I'll see it regardless. I'll definitely jump over that wall you failed to cross along with my companions, and as for the being beyond it. The plotter was now waiting for me to finish my words. I'll kill that guy. I'll end your most ancient dream. Uriel's status was growing even stronger. The expansive hall began crumbling down. Like a world breaking apart, the Nyas forest was disappearing. Outer gods moved closer to the secretive plotter, perhaps sensing that the end was nigh. Meanwhile, he opened his mouth. You said that you survived because of my story. In that case, time to pay your debt. Just before I could ask him for clarification, Yu Yoonghyeok's fables flooded out from him. Great fable, pilgrim of the lonely apocalypse, is howling out. Great fable, hellscape of eternity, has begun its storytelling. The plotter's memories were now permeating into me, memories that I didn't know. The information he gained after going through the 1863rd turn was now flooding into me. A portal was generated behind me, one created by the power of an outer god. It began to gradually suck me in. Hey, hang on a minute. What are you trying to? I'm not trying to leave this world's conclusion in your hands. At that moment, he no longer looked like the secretive plotter. I shall regress. Right now, he was Yu Yoonghyeok. I shall live through the 1864th turn, and then, the 1865th. I'll survive that turn, witness the conclusion, and become the outer god once more, and... Eventually, the hall collapsed. Everything was melting away under the bright light. Uriel's sword sliced through the thick history that totaled 1863rd regression turns, and flew towards the secretive plotter. To see the conclusion of this world line, I shall return. His body was defenselessly pierced through. And I had to watch that, unable to do anything. He was cut down by the flames of retribution, and his fable was scattering away. Constellation, secretive plotter, is activating stigma, regression LV. Even though he had become the outer god, he was still a regressor. The one thing he hadn't done in a long time, regressing, would start again. He'd wake up in the 1864th turn subway once more, and go on to create yet another horrifying world line. Kim Dokja thought to himself. I can't let that be. Before I could unleash the fables permeating in my soul form, though, Uriel made her move first. You shall not escape to the next turn. Her white hands grabbed the plotter's neck. Black light pouring out from her hand stopped the fable's disintegration. The light spread out gradually and encased his entire body. Soon, the light formed a shape of small sphere. I recognized what that was. That was the sealing sphere, used back in the 1863rd turn to seal away the apocalypse dragon. Why didn't I think of it before? Uriel was now an outer god, too. So she should obviously be aware of the plotter's, or Yu Young-hyuk's, ability by now. She should know that he'd continue regressing and would never truly die. Her hand tightened further and further. The jet-black sealing sphere soon emitted pale light. I shall seal you away for eternity. Chapter 453. The Final Wall. Part 5. The sealing technique that utilized the sealing sphere of the apocalypse dragon. This was a similar plan to what the 1863rd turn's Han Suyang had devised. It'll stop the time of this place, and Earth will be sealed along with the apocalypse dragon. Frozen forever in the 95th scenario. And that is the way you can kill Yu Young-hyuk. It was the method of sealing Yu Young-hyuk inside the perpetuity of time and stopping his regressions. I reflexively looked at the secretive plotter. I wanted to tell him that now would be a good time to run. Even if it was him, he'd not be able to escape from being sealed in that thing. However, why are you smiling? Constellation, secretive plotter, is looking at his own. He was strong enough to survive 1863 lifetimes. But because of that, he was also exhausted enough to crumble at any given moment. The eternal slumber. In a certain way, that was what he had been wishing for his entire life. Hang on. Uriel. Please stop. My words prompted Uriel to look in my direction for the first time. She seemed to be surprised by the fact that an insignificant being had called out her true name and opened her mouth to speak. Who is this soul form? Is it an existence from this world line? I wasn't sure what to say here. Before I could, though, the secretive plotter seized the initiative first. He's a nobody. Let him go. For a moment there, he was looking straight at me. Quite unlike his usual self, his eyes were displaying clear emotions. He genuinely wished for me to make my escape from here. However, the situation remained grim. The portal was being shut forcibly by Uriel. She alternated her gaze filled with the secretive plotter and me, her eyes remaining unreadable, before opening her mouth again. Even after you ruined your own turn and messed up someone else's world line, you still have something you wish to protect? Her power extended out in an instant and captured me. This might be the worst possible situation. Very well. I shall seal this bastard away with you. Enjoy your eternal slumber alongside your comrade, then. Hang on a minute. Shouldn't you be listening to my side of the story, too? Uriel glared at me as if I was speaking of nonsense. I didn't back down and shouted back. I do understand where you are coming from. I know how wronged you feel after your world line got distorted, and I get how angry you are. However, this is wrong. This isn't your world line. What you're trying to do is exactly the same as the one you hate, the secretive plotter. As I urgently made my case, I began sensing the stinging pain on my forehead. My head with no actual physical form was hurting right now. The sensation from the constrictive headband was getting stronger. Why don't we stop this? I mean, it's already not enough to pool our strengths together to destroy the star stream, so why should we fight each other like this? Don't you know who the real enemy is? Don't you know we're the true cause of all this tragedy? You want to destroy the star stream? Why do you wish to do something like that? Now that was an unexpected question. That's because the world of the star stream is. If the star stream disappears, the whole universe will fall into chaos. At that moment, a corner of my chest grew icy cold. I secretly believed that all my companions wished to witness the same conclusion as each other. However, what if that wasn't the case? After Yu Yonghyok's death, the 999th turn's companions would have carried on to reach the final scenario, and cleared it. What was the end of the world they had reached after all of that? Such a world line must never be created. That is the way of evil. Along with her declaration, her status began to tighten around me. In that case, it can't be helped. We can only fight, then. Fight? A creature without an incarnation body will. I'm not the one who'll fight you. I looked up at the sky and smirked back at her. My comrades will. Powerful sparks exploded in front of my eyes. My head got squeezed tightly as if it'd shatter into pieces, and my vision fell apart. Something was getting closer. Prajna. Dokja. Dantrai, stay put sutra. Here they come. Bot. Accompanied by Biyu's cry, a new portal opened up in the midair. Almost right away, the black flame dragon's pitch-black breath poured out. Uriel quickly discarded me and retreated away from that powerful rush of hot flames. At the same time, someone snatched away my soul form and flew up. Every freaking where you go, seriously man. And why do you look like this now? It was Han Suyang. I guess only the constrictive headband wasn't enough. And then, Yu Sang-ah. She was carrying my incarnation body on her back, currently shackled by the headband. She seemed to have correctly guessed what my current condition was. Currently, the binding force of the existence pledge is in a weakened state. I didn't hesitate and jumped back into my body. My vision crumbled again for a bit, and the sensations from my limbs returned. Although my incarnation body was not okay, it was still better than not having one. I saw Uriel activating Hellfire through my blurry vision. Han Suyang next to me had her eyes open up wide. Hey, what the heck is this? No time to explain. We've got to get out of here, pronto. Both Han Suyang and Sakyamana's successor, Yu Sang-ah, were powerful beings. Unfortunately, our enemy this time was simply too strong. With only these two. Quiet. As if waiting for that moment, Hellfire's flames pounced on my companions. God damn it. The waves of incredible heat that couldn't be avoided no matter where you escaped to. Its status was so humongous that Han Suyang's black flame alone wasn't enough to fight back. It was then, a powerful burst of reddish flames exploded from the same portal Han Suyang had used. It had the exact same coloring as our enemy's flames. Two powerful sources of heat clashed and generated a violent storm of fire. What the CK? Which mother cur is it? A certain someone coughed her lungs out and appeared from thick, choking flames. An archangel waved away the smoke with one hand and revealed herself. Wearing a black dress and kitted out in a golden anklet, an archangel I was intimately familiar with was standing there, soot on her cheeks and all. Ing? Which son of a bai dares to hurt my Kim Dok? Uriel shifted her gaze beyond the hellfire, and soon afterwards, her expression became dazed. Then her jaw slackened as she muttered out. I am the bai? I didn't expect her to be a part of the rescue team. The situation had gotten more complicated this way. Of all things, the two Uriels had to run into each other here. And you are? It seemed that the outer god Uriel was just as stunned by this. I see. You are this world lines. The moment these two Uriels looked at each other, violent sparks exploded in the air. It was rather obvious that our side was still in an overwhelmingly disadvantageous position. Our Uriel was strong, sure, but that Uriel was someone who had witnessed the end of a world line. If we don't find an opening quickly and escape, then... Su-cha-cha-chat. An unexpected event happened next. Starstream is intrigued by the encounter of these two beings. Disconnected film theory is activating. When two fables met and intertwined with each other in the air, a gigantic backflow of memories occurred. Get up, Yu Yonghyok. Hurry! Memories from the 999th regression turn were coming through. Uriel's eyes opened wider at this sudden intrusion of foreign memories. What's this? What's going on? Waves of unfamiliar memories were flooding us. Uriel from the 999th turn was fighting with her back pressed against Yu Yung Hyok's. Now that was a fine display of what being comrade in arms looked like. Our Uriel couldn't get a hold of herself from the rush of memories flooding in and staggered unsteadily. That damn theory, again it's. Before I could complete my train of thought, though, I realized that the situation wasn't as bad as I expected. Because the exchange of fables via that theory went both ways. The evidence of that was the 999th turn's Uriel, who not only staggered about, but she actually even plopped down on the ground. Kim Dokja. Over here. Sit next to me. Definitely. 9158 forever. One's ID shouldn't be too eye-catching, so. Right. Let me go with Yuri 9158. Alright, it's not so obvious now. Squid Kim Dokja's leg will be given away as a special bonus? And there were a few fables that might shock their viewers mixed in among them, too. This, what is? 999th turn's Uriel was frowning deeply as if she was in pain. Han Suyang didn't miss that opening and, while supporting our Uriel, shouted out. I don't know what's going on here, but this is good. Let's bounce out of here. I mean, she looks seriously strong even at a glance, right? Her judgment was definitely correct. However, she forgot one small detail. Hang on. Let's take him with us, too. I pointed at the secretive plotter sagging on the ground. Perhaps the memories of this world line proved to be too shocking for her. The ceiling sphere Uriel had been constructing had become quite badly tattered. Han Suyang spoke in pure disbelief. Are you stupid? Why should we take him with us? We need to bring him with us. Only then will we reach the correct conclusion. What bullshit are you? Indeed, it was a bullshit-like utterance. I was being obstinate, and my actions didn't make much sense. Even then, I continued to speak my piece. That guy must not die here. He too has the right to see the conclusion. All the worlds were simply blaming Yu Yung Hyok. Uriel from the 999th turn, everyone from that world line, too, as the consequence of spending his entire life to reach his own conclusion, he had to become the enemy of every world line. Out of the 1863 regression turns, was there any turn where he got to be happy, at least once? When I regained my wits, I was already sprinting forward. 999th turn Uriel was slowly regaining her own wits too, and I saw her trying to reignite the hellfire. Han Suyang shouted out. You crazy fool. We don't have the time. I gave it my all to activate the Way of the Wind. Flames from hellfire began flooding in once more. These dancing flames in the air somehow looked like ancient letters to me. Authornym. Wouldn't it be okay, just one time? I couldn't quite remember how old this memory was. I mean, there are so many regression turns, so, just once wouldn't. Did I really say something like that? My memories weren't clear enough. However, just like back then, when all I could do was to type on the keyboard and press the spacebar, I could only run forward like crazy right in this moment. Isn't it okay for him to be happy? Maybe, that was me whining to a god responsible for creating this world. It seems that you weren't happy with what I have written. Then, the god replied. In that case, what kind of a conclusion would you like to see, Dokjun-im? Which conclusion would be a happy ending for the protagonist? What did I say back then? I tried, but couldn't remember at all. And even now, I couldn't be sure of what the right answer was. I didn't have the right to speak about someone else's happiness, after all. However, even if it was someone like me who had no right, there was this one thing I still understood. This is not a happy ending. The secretive plotter's body was getting sucked into the encroaching heat from the hellfire. With no time to spare, I managed to grab hold of his wrist, and then, began running in the opposite direction. Han Suyang's complexion grew pale, and she hurriedly summoned the X-grade Faragini. Meanwhile, Yu Sanga shouted out. Dokja SSI. Faster. You can't. I evaded the rushing flames and placed the secretive plotter on my back. The bottom of my feet was growing insanely hot now. I ran with all my might to escape from that crazy heat. Arg, screw this shit. I don't care anymore. Hurry up and get in. Han Suyang reached out to me, and I barely managed to jump inside the vehicle. I saw Oriel in the back seat, shivering away. Almost at the same time, a tsunami wave of reddish flames pounced on us. Stop. I inwardly prayed towards the mass production type maker. I prayed that this vehicle's performance wasn't mass production in the slightest. Constellation, mass production type maker, is grinning brightly. With an explosive turn of speed, the X-grade Ferragini accelerated forward. At the same time, BU opened a portal, and we jumped into this dimensional passageway right away. The horrifying howl made by 999th turns Uriel chased us from behind. I was scared that she was actually chasing us down. Even if we managed to escape back to Earth unscathed like this, if that Uriel managed to follow us and went on a rampage. Suchachachuchit. The 999th turns Uriel stopped giving chase as the sparks crazily whipped about, while shooting me a terrifying glare, no less. Starstream is carefully observing the living flame dot. It seemed that she couldn't use this portal. A powerful storm of probabilities aftermath was holding her back. But that made sense. A being possessing such a might actually enjoyed less freedom in the Starstream, after all. However, there was this one thing that kept nagging me. If she was that restrained, how could she appear in the Nias forest with such good timing? It was as if someone had instigated this whole thing. Instigating it? Great Dakibi, Hyoju, is keeping a close eye on your whereabouts. At that moment, a faint little theory entered my head. What if that Uriel's appearance was not a coincidence? Great Dakibi, Heech, is keeping a close eye on your whereabouts. Great Dakibi, Baram, is keeping a close eye on your whereabouts. What if someone within the Starstream wanted it to happen, and they summoned her to this world line? There was almost no organization in this world capable of moving that much probability. Bureau, is keeping a close eye on your whereabouts. The Nias forest could be seen through the vehicle's windows. Outer gods that came from the doomed world lines were now being extinguished. Citizens of a small kingdom were saying their goodbyes to their king. Survive, 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 survive. There was more than one outer god king. Just like how the 999th turns Uriel had shown up here, other kings would undoubtedly appear, too. Surely, the ones trying to interfere with the conclusion I wanted to see would call them to this world. Starstream is looking at you. I raised my head to find the world that I need to fight looking at me. This would be a very tough and arduous fight. Han Suyang looked at me through the rearview mirror and grumbled about something. Yu Senga, sitting in the front passenger's seat, was looking at me. I quietly nodded my head and gazed at the unconscious secretive plotter and the still-dazed Uriel. Quite likely, no one in this universe would stand on our side. I saw the portal's exit in the distance. Your choice has left a profound impact on the... Yours leaning towards eternity. And so, the time to prepare for the final pages of the world had arrived.